Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the John Mayaki Show. Good afternoon. We are glad to have you on this show today, on the John Mayaki Show. This is the second episode of the show, and we appreciate your support and activism. Today, this afternoon, we will be discussing 2023. We're going to be evaluating the presidential aspirants. We're going to be discussing how these aspirants plan to persuade voters. We're going to be discussing political campaigns in this Gen Z era. And we're going to be discussing the president's interview on NTA during the year, in the about 2-3 weeks ago, on NTA and Channels Television about elimination of his preferred candidate. We're going to be discussing the crisis in the APC, the crisis in the PDP, and why the president said the PDP may snatch power. These are some of those areas we'll be considering this afternoon. Don't forget that the road to Aso Rock is quite lengthy, long. The road to Aso Rock is expensive, and the road to Aso Rock is exhausting. And becoming a candidate of your political party is just one of the beginning of the electoral process. And so successful candidates after the primaries must both persuade voters that they deserve not just their vote, they just have to garner the critical votes of the masses in the elections. And so persuading voters is the essence of a political campaign, and advertising, theme songs, stump speeches, and even negative campaigning have been around since electioneering began, and each advance in technology since then has offered new opportunities for candidates to persuade voters. This afternoon, I have with me Mr. Zachary Jr. Mr. Zachary, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. John Mayaki.
Thank you so very much.
Good afternoon, Nigerians. Good afternoon, followers and lovers of the John Mayaki Show.
Thank you. Joining Mr. Zachary Jr. on the show is Mr. Efosa of Tokile. Good afternoon, my brother.
Good afternoon, Mr. John Mayaki. It's good to be on your show today.
My pleasure. Thank you so very much. And so this afternoon, they will be joining me to do justice to this very topic. We have seen, for example, that advancement in technology is especially the disruption from the analog life we have lived before this era of digitalization. We have seen what technology has done and as it affects campaign. For example, the developments in photographic techniques spark new campaign strategies, especially for the Gen Z era. For instance, I have seen the deployment of carefully selected photographs of the Vice President and the APC national leader, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, with short messages on social media, and the impact are quite huge and appealing. To take a look at those pictures, take a look at the Vice President's picture, the pictures of the national leader of the APC. Take a look at those pictures, and you will see the messages they pass, and we'll continue from there. You see those pictures. You see those pictures. You see the picture of both the president, of the Vice President, and the Asiwaju hugging themselves. Mr. Zachary and Mr. Efosa, I'm sure you don't have any political enemy. These guys are simply enjoying themselves. They are no enemies. But it seems some of our followers have created enemies for themselves and inheriting others' enemies. Please, you see those pictures, you see the sign, you see that sign, that one tells you it is somebody, someone, the Jagaban. You see the picture of the Vice President too, When you see their pictures, it connotes some information. It gives out some information that these people, in fact, some messages are sent. What about the impact of short videos and the deployment of new media as against the analog generation of newspaper and television campaigns and all? I'm not sure, Zachary or Mr. Fusa, you have bought newspaper for the past 1 year. Give us a meaning into what you think concerning this show this afternoon. Mr. Zachary, please.
All right. If you look at the first picture that you displayed, the one that the vice president was tying his shoes, it connotes the supporters of the vice president, I believe, are putting this out there to let the people know that this man is fit and ready. You will remember that in time past there has been this consistent argument about the health of our president and then our presidential aspirants. Just lately, the Tinubu, Ahmed Tinubu, one of the aspirants under the APC, came from the UK where he went for a knee surgery. So more or less, the supporters will always go overboard a little bit. They are trying to show the people that this our vice president will not be a medical tourist like we have had in President Buhari. And the other one, they are trying to let us know, the one who was hugging Asiwaju. Look, there is no way you can put it. The VP is one of those one of the sons, the political sons of Asiwaju and Bola Tinubu. They are trying to show us that there is no dispute between these two people. They only have aspirations. And in any case, let the best aspiration win. And that is what we are seeing in the course of these pictures. And more of them will come. This is the era of the new media. Oh. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Very well, very well.
Okay. So it's the era of the new media, and in the era of the new media, the analog media is now relegated to the background. Elections now, debates on election matters are done on the social media. And for you to be able to win in an election, you must carry those in social media along. Because Nigeria is a majority youth country. We have a very viral and a high youth population. And that means that whatever you are doing, you must be able to carry these people along. These are technologically savvy people. We have more mobile phones than we have cars. We have more mobile phones than we have newspapers. We have more mobile phones than we have, you can name it, you can go on and on and on. And that is the exact situation that we find ourselves at today.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. But if a candidate's message speaks to the people, if he chooses his issues wisely, the office of the president, the office of the vice president, the office of the national leader of the APC, all these messages we tell during the campaign and eventual election. This is true in senior claims anyway. It may also be true about Nigeria because times are changing. Over time, the media has changed, and today's campaign strategies quietly reflect the use of statistical analysis and the science to influence and affect our lives. Mr. Efusa, kindly give us your thought concerning this issue.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. John Mayaki, for having me on your show this afternoon. Well, firstly, the use of technology in our modern day politics cannot be overemphasized. And I see this trend. It goes a long way to tell how prepared our candidates, how prepared are those who are vying for the office of the presidency. Generally, we understand that campaigning, the steps to campaigning begins first on social media. We've been hearing rumors on social media that some persons are willing to contest the seat of the president even before declaration. So the people are taking advantage of this modern means of communication to a large number of persons in achieving their aspirations. So it's a good one for our democracy and it's a good one for the candidates taking advantage of it. Now, something interests me about the pictures you were posting. It goes a long way to show that both the national leader of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and our incumbent vice president, we should not take politics too high to say they are enemies. What they have in common is that both of them have aspiration, even though the vice president is yet to declare. But for me, I still see them as friends, and I still see two of them working together for the betterment of Nigeria, which is the common goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Today, a candidate's every word, whatever a candidate says, or whatever an aspirant says, every action of an aspirant, and even their perceived thoughts are paraded before the public, especially on social media. However, many of the methods of persuading voters remain essentially the same. Choosing a president often requires voters to resolve a tension between two factors: the personal traits of the candidate and the policies that he or she and his administration will implement. Recently, the national leader of the APC said he was going to pay school fees for, was it school fees or WAEC or so? WAEC, yeah. For students, and Nigerians, a lot of them are saying, no, we've got the problem of insecurity and not school fees. We've got the problem of poverty and co. So, Mr. Efosa, what is your take? Mr. Efosa?
Sorry?
Mr. Zachary, are you there? Okay. Mr. Zachary?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, did you hear that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So on my thoughts on the payment of the WAEC fees by the principal candidate, I call him the premium candidate in the APC, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. You know, we have to go back in time a little bit to be able to establish why he still runs by these principles. When he was governor of Lagos, it is recorded that he was the first governor in Nigeria to pay WAEC fees for students. And you see, he's replicating, he's attempting, and it was a very popular policy, and it helped a lot of persons who were even going to, then WAEC was like good, who were not going to be able to pay for WAEC to pay. Now it's attempting to replicate that at the national level. There's a big problem with that. The problem that we had 20 years ago is not the same problems we have today. 20 years ago, we had a problem with illiteracy. We had a problem with, poor qualification. 20 years ago, if you have a BSc, chances are 9 times out of 10 that you will get a job. 20 years ago, even if you have a WAEC, you can go anywhere and apply. They'll employ you based on WAEC. WAEC was even the standard of employment back in the days. But today, that has changed. BSc holders don't even have where to work, not to talk of WAEC holders. As of today, BSc holders are doing the jobs of WAEC holders. You will remember recently, Aliko Dangote wanted to employ truck drivers. I happen to be in the logistics business, so I have a little knowledge about it. Wanted to employ truck drivers. Normally, the job of a truck driver should not be more than highest the qualification of SSCE. Once you're able to write, read, gauge your diesel, check your speedometer, check your engine, and check your jabos, you are good to go. But people who had PhDs were applying to be truck driver with Dangote because the remuneration was that tempting. So PhD holders, MSc holders, we are not even talking about BSc holders, we are applying to be truck drivers. Now that tells you one thing and one thing only, that we have a major unemployment problem in Nigeria. And if we have a major unemployment problem, you don't need to be paying people WAEC. You need to be creating industries so that those who have WAEC and BSc can work.
Thank you. Mr. Foster, what's your take? When the national leader of the APC said he will pay WAEC fees for students, and then people say, oh no, it's insecurity, oh no, it's about poverty and all of those. What's your take?
Okay, personally for me, I think it is better these candidates start telling us what they think about the nation, what is going to be their manifesto. If Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is telling us that he's going to be paying WAEC fees, which I want to believe that should be one of his cardinal missions, but that is not all. I think it's still not on the bad side. But then what confronts us today as a nation is far more than paying WAEC fee. We have the problem of insecurity ravaging our nation today. And I believe every true Nigeria is actually looking for a lasting solution to the issue of security, the issue of economic, our economic level, our job creation. Nigeria should be an industrialized nation. These are things that I think whoever will be the president of Nigeria should be looking into. And if they're able to give us a good roadmap on achieving this, then I think the voters will queue behind such a person rather than telling us that you're going to pay WAEC fee. Now, it's not bad paying WAEC fee because it helps to increase our literate level, because one of the problems Nigeria is also confronted with today is the fact that even those who are educated still have problem of understanding, still have problem of knowledge. So if Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is saying, well, knowledge will be one of my cardinal goals, fine, that is his own. Now let the voters now see that is this a major need for us to keep behind Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, or we should look for a man who has a roadmap to solve Nigeria insecurity problem, who has a roadmap to solve the economic challenges facing Nigeria, to solve the problem of unemployment. There are so many issues facing Nigeria. So let them come out with their manifesto and show us the paths they wish to achieve it. And then we'll keep behind any of them.
Wonderful. Great. If you're watching us live and you want to participate, the lines are there to call on the screen. If you check your screen, you will see the two lines are displayed on the screen. Call us and share your thoughts with us. The achievements of Mr. President, I think, and his advice in office could also impact on the success of the APC candidate if they ever emerge, or whenever they emerge. Mr. President's favorite candidate, I will elaborate on that subsequently, especially his favorite candidate that the president is fearing could be eliminated. What I mean by this, yesterday we understand there's a plan to increase fuel. I'm sure you are aware of that, Mr. Zekari and Mr. Fusa. How do you think that if this administration increases the price of fuel will impact on the society or impact on the election?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, the APC has a lot of job to do if they want to remain in power. Because now they are confronted with in the last election that brought in President Muhammadu Buhari, the election between President Muhammadu Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan. They promised that we will introduce change. And Nigeria key behind that manifesto of change to vote in the APC. Now they are not going to be telling us they want change. Rather, they are going to be riding on showing us what the administration has done for the last 7 years before the election. And if there's nothing to show for it, then it will cost them the national seat. But if, on a second thought, they have good policies, they have good antecedents to show, whoever they will bring out as their candidate, we have seen that play out in Edo State during the first, not this recent gubernatorial election, when the then ruling party brought out a candidate that, sorry to use this word, that was not popular as at then, and he won, riding on the back of his political party. So for APC, whoever will be the candidate of APC in the next coming election, we have a lot of work to do, because going by the body language of the masses, you find out that this was not the kind of government they actually had expected when they voted in the last election, when APC came out with their change mantra. But be that as it may, the current suggestion of fuel increment will still not solve the APC's problem, whether it's increased or not. They just have to sit up tight, especially in this last time, try to tidy up their offices, try to tidy up the nation, try to make the nation move. And then maybe Nigerians, the voters, can stay and say, okay, let's consider this party. But be as it may, I would advise that whatever policy the president will be coming out with, he should understand that it goes a long way, especially in this electionary year, to affect his political party. And he had benefited from the party. He should try as much as possible to ensure that the party, in all that he wants to do, remain viable in the next years.
Okay. Mr. Zachary Jr.,
are you there?
Yeah.
How do you think if there's an increment in the price of fuel will impact on the economy or on the living standard and on the election, especially the candidate?
Well, I will look at it in two prongs, in two ways. First, the economic sense of removal of fuel subsidy, and secondly, the political sense of the removal of fuel subsidy. And then a third one, the social sense of the removal of fuel subsidy. Let me start from the economy. As of today, it makes no economic sense to retain fuel subsidy in this country. We are paying far too much to subsidize fuel. And if we continue to subsidize fuel, we will continue to lack the resources to invest in other critical infrastructure that can directly affect the life of the least men. That is on the economic side. On the political side, it will be politically suicidal. Let me repeat. It will be politically suicidal. It will mean tying a rope to your ceiling fan and hanging yourself by the neck for the present government to remove fuel subsidy on the eve of the election. Then let's talk about the social part. On the social part, people have an emotional attachment to increment in the price of fuel. I take you a while back when Comrade Shomole, then Edo State Governor, then the Labour leader Obasanjo was president. He increased the price of fuel, and you saw the protests that followed shortly. It was the same in the era of Jonathan. When the Jonathan administration increased the price of fuel, it almost collapsed the Jonathan administration. They had to quickly reverse themselves, and it was one of those things that midwiped the loss, the colossal loss of the election in 2015 to the present government of Muhammadu Buhari. Now, the Muhammadu Buhari administration are still toying with the same idea. It can only mean one thing, that fuel subsidy does not make any form of economic sense. However, when you talk about social and political, it is suicidal to remove fuel subsidy at this time. But for economics, it makes a lot of sense. So the economy will continue to have the argument, the politicians will continue to have the argument, and those of us in the social circles continue to have an argument. But I can tell you for free, the Buhari administration is not out of his mind. They will not remove fuel subsidy on the eve of election. The best that can happen is that immediately after the election, the next president will immediately remove it, riding on the goodwill of winning an election very early in the day.
Thank you. Oh my God, that is quite interesting. The attitude of Mr. President also comes to play here. Already he has said he has no interest in the election, but only he said he has no interest, but only an undisclosed favorite candidate. Now, how he succeeded in making his dark horse candidate his successor remains unknown. Another factor is the indiscipline in the party. These are factors that are likely to affect the ruling party. The indiscipline in the APC is one of those factors, especially the perpetration of the Mema Laboni-led caretaker committee. You have, Mr. President, a reward system that is also going to affect how the election pans out, depending on where you're standing from, Mr. President reward system or APC reward system. There are a lot of people who did work for the APC in the first election for the Mr. President, in the second, in the re-election, and they feel they've not benefited anything. They are unable to trust the party again, and the APC. All those will affect the election and the candidate. Another factor is who is standing with you, or who are your backers and supporters. Are your supporters political heavyweights or social media commentators? Have you seen the recent trend on social media or even on television, where somebody is running, the other man is running? Oh, this one says someone call him the Godfather or the Kingmaker, and another one says, oh, we are running, but what do you think is happening concerning these paperweight guys who run around and they are contesting? What do you think? Mr. Zachary, please.
Oh, am I up?
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much. Like you said, a lot of persons will argue that the president is a renowned politician. But I will argue that the president is a very popular, he has a religious followership, but politically speaking, he's a novice. And that will show you, it immediately show the way the president has run his own political party. You cannot imagine that a President Olusegun Obasanjo will be in office and the APC will be so disjointed as it is today. They can't even go into an election united. Let me give you a vivid example. Like the Edo election, it was APC versus APC and PDP reaping the benefits. I repeat myself. In the last Edo election, those who are watching me now will agree that it was APC versus APC and the PDP were reaping the benefits. That is what we have in the APC today. Now, how do you explain that May Malabuni has continued to perpetuate himself in office, having been given just 6 months to organize a convention? And less than a year to an election, the ruling party in the country does not have a substantive, executive to run its party. It immediately tells you that the president, politically speaking, has failed. But again, you must look at the other issues that relate to his popularity. The president today, whoever he is supporting, would get minimum of 12 million votes in northern Nigeria. That is a statement of fact. Whoever he chooses. And when he says that he has a preferred candidate and he does not want that preferred candidate to be eliminated, it then means that he is pointing towards an area that the establishment does not support. And if the establishment does not support you, you have the 12 million votes of the candidate. That means that candidate in itself must have to go out there and look for votes. And that is where the joker lies. You have a Tinubu, clearly from what the president said, clearly it might not be Ahmed Bola Tinubu, but you have a joker in maybe a candidate from the eastern part of the country. When you talk of the eastern part, you now look at two people. Dave Umahi, the governor of Ebonyi State, Rotimi Amechi, the present Minister of Transportation, and one of those super ministers. Why will you mention Rotimi Amechi? No other minister in the Buhari administration has done big contracts like the Amechi guy. And he's one of the most quiet ministers. Amechi's contracts have come from Chinese loans, and those loans are mega loans. So when somebody is doing contract of $3 billion, $4 billion, $2 billion, $1.5 billion, that tells you that the president has a lot of confidence in that guy. And it immediately points to the fact that the president might also be looking that way. So that's the way it is stacked up right now. And I hope that going forward, those who the joker that the president has, that they are saying he does not want eliminated, joker will eventually have to come out of his or her own shell and reach out to Nigerians directly.
When you say you want to contest for the office of the presidency, do you have the political structure? Somebody asked me the other day, they say, "Oh, John, are you going to support Dele Momodu?" And I simply replied very candidly that does it have the structure? Does it have the reach, the connection? Does it have the spread? What are his political antecedents? Not just Dele Momodu now. Those people who want to contest, all of them put together, what is their records of achievements in office? Who are their foot soldiers? How many have they empowered? And very importantly, can you single-handedly foot your bill for the election? Can you foot your bill for the election? Or are you depending on Mr. President's support, financial support, or donation from friends and your party? The recent fuel increment by this administration, if at the end of the day there's going to be an increment, will also impact on the chances of the APC. Mr. Ifosa, what are your thoughts?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. John Mayaki. Firstly, I want to start by saying, for the president to have said he does not want his preferred candidates to be eliminated or somehow during his interview that I watched the last time, it's funny. Because for me, I think he should understand that by now, Nigerians are not looking for someone to bring out a candidate and lift up the candidate's hands and say, this is my candidate. Nigerians want to vote a president of their own. A president that they can trust, a president that they believe in. Now, and that president should not just be a puppet or someone that will not be seeing how did Barrow put it again, the voice of Jacob but the skin of Esau. But we want a president that has his structure cut across the north, east, west, and south part of Nigeria. And if the president at this stage has not shown, he said he does not have interest, but yet he has the candidates that he does not want to show, it shows that he has an interest in the election. But whoever the candidate may be, I think the candidate should come out on time and start playing the politics. But as it is now today, I can only hear that we have a game of Mai in Ebonyi State. We have Ojus Okalu from Abia State. Then we have Senator Ahmed Bola Tinubu. These are the only three persons in the APC that are showing interest in the politics.
No, that's not true. That is not true. Have you not seen the picture of the vice president where he was about to run? The picture of the vice president.
Well, I have seen pictures, but I have not heard him declaring. Others have declared.
That picture alone, that picture alone means a lot. I mean,
Mr. Chabayaki, the picture could be many things, but like when there was a speculation.
Look at that picture. Look at that picture on your screen. Does that not show this man is ready to run?
He's ready to run, but what kind of race? Is it the race of the presidency or the race to support a candidate? We don't know.
Have you not heard of the Kogi State governor who is also going to declare immediately after the APC National Convention?
Well, he said Nigerians are calling on him to declare, to run for the office of the president, but he has not accepted. He's still consulting. So when he finally consults and he comes out and says, yes, I am running, or I have informed Mr. President I am running, then we will start bringing him into the forefront. The white lion himself.
But you guys, Mr. Zachary, you were discussing about Amechi. Why have you not asked if Mr. Fayemi will be running too?
Well, you see, some of these guys, especially those who are appointed, like Amechi, cannot come out to declare now. Because declaring will mean you will be working at cross purposes with the present government. So you will not want to declare because we need to resign his position to come and run. But a certain Fayemi, I don't see Fayemi running. I don't see, if you ask me to list the top 5, the top 3 candidates in the APC, it will easily be Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Yemi Osinbajo, and one other. And that one other between the Buhari, Rotimi, and Mechi. But I don't see Fayemi running. I don't see how it's going to be possible. He does not have the muscle, the financial power to run. It is a very small state, and their budget is probably the budget of Ahmed Bola Tinubu for his political sons in a calendar year. So I don't see how he's going to do it. Probably he's working for an agenda to push a certain candidate. And in that his agenda, it will be either a Tinubu or an Yemi Osinbajo. So that is what they are pushing. But for him running, I don't see how it's going to be possible. He occupies a very sensitive position as the chairman of the Progressive Governors Forum, but that's where it ends. It does not Progressive Governors Forum, Nigerian
Governors Forum.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so that's where it ends. Okay. So beyond that, I don't see how much of political weight it can put. Don't forget that he was thoroughly embarrassed out of office by Ayodele Fayose during the administration of Dr. Goodluck Jonathan as president. So that is still a stain on his political clout. So we'll be talking more of those who are political puritans, those who have stayed in the game for a while. And that's why Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu is head and shoulders above a lot of them. I personally don't want him, but you have to give the man credit. He has done his job. He has been on this job for the past 20 years.
Good. Now the president is saying that there is this elimination theory about Mr. President on his favorite candidate as a successor. Now, recently, during an interview with NTA in the new year, Mr. President expressed fear that his favorite presidential candidate may be eliminated if he announces the name of such a person or a successor. Let us analyze the president's exclusive interview with NTA and Channels Television in the new year and see how we can learn one or two things. Now, don't forget that Mr. President said he has no special interest in the 2023 election. We all agree on that. He says so. Nonetheless, he has a favorite candidate he wouldn't divulge. Now, when asked about his presidential election, on the presidential election, Mr. President replied, "It is not my problem." Okay. When asked about his favorite presidential candidate, the president replied, "I would tell you my favorite for he may be eliminated if I mention. I better keep it secret." That was Mr. President's statement. When asked about what comes to his mind when PDP is mentioned, Buhari replied, "Failure." So, but okay, that is not bad. Mr. President is a great man. In one breath, Mr. President has no interest. In fact, he has no interest. And in another breath, he has a preferred candidate. The one he won't disclose to avoid being eliminated. Again, two things come to mind. When Mr. President mentioned elimination, two things in my mind. What manner of elimination was he talking about? Party elimination, party primary elimination, or real life elimination? Secondly, who is this weak and poor favorite of Mr. President that is so vulnerable that fit to govern this country? But of course, Mr. Zakaria has mentioned somebody like Amechi and all of those. If Mr. President got son, I mean Mr. Favorite to rule in government, is he in government? Is this Mr. Favorite to rule in government? If yes, at what level of government? At the presidency? Is it the vice president or a minister or a governor? Or at the state level as a governor? If yes, how could anyone think that a man at that level could be eliminated, both politically at the primaries or by any other means, especially when Mr. President has an interest in his favorite candidate as his successor? Guys, you guys need to convince me and enlighten me about Mr. President's statements. Mr. Foster, what do you think?
Well, that was where I was actually heading to. The president saying he's not interested in 2023 and yet he has a favorite candidate. It is funny. But I think what he was trying to say is that if he should tell Nigerians that this is my preferred candidate, now from the party perspective, that candidate might be eliminated using the principle of zoning. Using the principle of zoning. Maybe that particular candidate may be from let's assume from the southwest, and then they will like, okay, the presidency should be zoned to south-south. So he's trying to play the joker, waiting for the party national congress to hold. Then after that, he cannot say, okay, this is my preferred candidate. And that is where some of us were like, is it not too early for some persons to start declaring their intention, especially in APC, knowing fully well that the party national convention is yet to be held, which is coming on February 26th by what the Mala Buni led CCPC handling. Now, for me, I think the president is trying as much as possible to see the body language of the political gladiators in APC, to see their body language. Then he tends to stay in that same line. The president has been known to be such a person who keeps what he is doing to his chest and look at the body language. You remember?
Okay. Don't also forget, I'm not sure Mr. Efusa can hear me now. Don't also forget that Mr. President has no interest in who succeeds him. But he has a favorite candidate. We told you before. Mr. President said so. Is that not interesting on its own? That is quite interesting. The question now is, what manner of elimination was the president referring to? Let us assume he was protecting his candidate from party primary elimination. Could that also be the reason the party is being run on an ad hoc manner, in the sense that you appoint someone for 6 months, nearing 2 years, the person is in office. The assignment, the purpose for appointing him is almost even crippling the system, the party. And like a father who has no interest in who succeeds him, President Muhammadu Buhari want the APC to put their house in order or lose power to the opposition in 2023. Wow. Don't forget that according to the president, PDP is a failure, and that the opposition, and that is the opposition he's talking about taking over. It's quite baffling to say put your house in order or the opposition will take over. Again, Mr. President, someone said Mr. President favorite is out of government, and that they even speculated Pastor Tunde Bakari. Again, listening to Mr. President, we have a time frame for the National Convention. We have to work because the 4-year cycle is constitutional. It cannot be interfered with. It cannot be interfered with by anybody. Yeah, so he said. So if the party couldn't agree, then the opposition can take over. If the party couldn't agree, then the failure party, Mr. President called them failure. Don't forget, Mr. President said whenever he hears PDP, his mind tells him about failure. So, but he's warning you now to say, he's also warning you to say, if you don't put your house in order, Mr. Failure, which is the PDP, will take over. Will the president allow Mr. Failure to take over all he has done and they mess it up? The question again, though belated, is what happened to the 4-year constitutional tenure of the past NWC of the APC? Going by Mr. President's national broadcast, why was the 4-year cycle of the past NWC not constitutional? Why? And the question is, I think, the quest for a better Nigeria, Mr. Zekeri, I can see you, you need to fix your device properly in the, you need to make it horizontal so that you can better. Mr. Efosa, what are your thoughts concerning the president's statements?
Sorry, I had network issues, so I was not really online. I just logged in again. Can I look which of the particular statements?
Okay, when the president said he is afraid if the APC isn't able to put his house in order, the PDP, which he termed the PDP as failure, a failure party, that they will take over. Do you see a situation where you allow your house to be taken over by failures?
I think the problem of APC started. I think the problem of APC started about immediately the president won the election. You see, when you as a leader, you are unable to bring aggrieved party members together and tell them, okay, let's work for the interest of the party, vis-a-vis the interest of the nation. This is where APC's problem started from. APC problem never started from the Adams Oshogule-led National Working Committee. It actually started from when the president won an election. The various arms, the CPC, the APC, ACN, the NPDP, the ABGA, still see themselves, even though under one roof, but they still see themselves as different. That was where their problem started from. The president failing to call every faction together to say, now, there's nothing like ACN, there's nothing like CPC, there's nothing like NPDP, there's nothing like ABGA. We have all come together to form a party to rescue Nigeria. Now, when he failed in that, then another problem they also had in APC was the fact that some persons had interest, but they were not coming out to say, this is in my interest. Instead, they were working on that ground to undo themselves. And that has really cost APC the chances of giving Nigeria that sense of understanding that they are ready to rule. APC, to me, came up as a party who wanted to just snatch power. They were not ready to put their house in order. And the president, like Mr. Zachary said, has failed in that regard politically. He has failed to garner the lot he enjoyed during the 2015 general election to make his home ready. For me, I do not just see APC fixing their house, but I see a situation whereby if they did not reconcile themselves together, PDP will just have the day. it's going to be a sweet ride for PDP. And it is the prayer of Nigerians that whoever we emerge as both the candidate of the APC or the candidate of the PDP should be someone who can rescue Nigeria. Both political parties have questions to answer, but I think what Nigeria needs now is someone who can save Nigeria and also save the political party, because the instability in APC is affecting the development that we expect from the APC-led government. So I think the president knows what he's saying when he said that if the APC cannot keep their ass in order, then the PDP will reap from it. He should be the championing, he should be at the forefront of championing a reconciliation in APC so that his government can work for the betterment of Nigeria at large.
Thank you. Wonderful. Mr. Zekeri, what about when the president said the tenure of the party executive is constitutionally 4 years? And my worry is this: the past National Working Committee had a constitutional 4 years tenure. What happened to it?
Well, I think the president was first of all misled to intervene in the party. There was a crisis. We are both from Edo State. 3 of us are from Edo State. There was a crisis in Edo State, and they manufactured it at the level of the ward of the then national chairman, and that snowballed into the suspension and counter suspension and court injunction against party rules. Of course, there's a party rule that whatever problem starts in the party must first of all be resolved within the party before it goes to the conventional court. Those rules were not obeyed, and then they went to court, and that led to the dissolution of the Adams led National Working Committee. The president was misled. He now realizes his mistake, but it is too late because there are so many forces pulling in so many different directions, and that means that if those forces are not addressed, they will pull the party apart as we approach 2023. You talked about the president's speech where he said...
sorry, Mr. Zekeri, sorry. Mr. Zekeri.
Hello?
Mr. Zekeri, sorry. Let us speak this time. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
My name is Damisa Ojegbai.
Mr. Damisa Ojegbai, good afternoon. Where are you calling from?
At this point, I'm calling from Mandala area of Niger State.
Wow. Please share with us your thoughts.
Well, on this subject matter, as APC, as a party, they actually need to put their house in order. And again, it will be suicidal for any political party to zone presidency to the north. We cannot have the ATM from Mohammed Buhari, then another northern president is taking over for him. That means there will be a lot of political instability in Nigeria as a nation. As APC, by the grace of since the convention has been ceased embrace, I believe they are going to put theirs in order because we have a lot of key players who God by himself has given wisdom on how to resolve crisis within the internal party. And I do know that what this is done is the vote of record. Presidential election is going to be a wild way for APC. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate it. Go ahead, Mr. Zekeri.
Okay, so I was going to wrap up by saying that when the president said when they talk about PDP, what comes to his mind is failure. Yeah. I totally agree with him. PDP as a party is the only party that has failed spectacularly in office and outside office. Outside office, as an opposition, they have even done worse than they did in office. I had expected that the PDP of the opposition PDP would put this present government on its toes by engaging it on policies, politics, and issues. However, what we have had in the PDP is politics of subterfuge, trying to undo the government, trying to illegitimize the government, trying to call a legitimate government illegitimate. Supporting, and I said supporting, and I said authoritatively, insurgency and disagreement and secessionist plan. How do you explain that a PDP senator was the person who signed the bail bond of Nnamdi Kanu, and then the guy jacked to Europe, and he was now subsequently, they like to call it now, extraordinarily renditioned back to Nigeria. So the PDP as an opposition has even done worse than the PDP in government. It is only unfortunate that Nigerians have to pick between the devil and the deep blue sea. And that is what we have had. I wish we could have a third force that would engage the public, that would discuss with the public and present the issues as they are. But unfortunately, the PDP has failed as an opposition, and it has failed more spectacularly as a ruling party. So when the president says what comes to a mind when he hears PDP is failure, I agree. What comes to my mind when I hear PDP is failure.
But again, if you say it's failure, will you allow your house to be taken over by a failure party?
Yes, when the ruling is failing, the opposition failure can take over. When you have to failure, let the best failure take over.
Does that not show that you as a leader, you have also failed?
Now, the president is clear. If the APC refuses to put his house in order, the PDP can take over. It then means if the APC fails to put his house in order, then the APC becomes a failure.
The president is the leader. The president is the leader of the party. The president is the leader of the party. Don't forget.
The president on paper is the leader of the party. However, we have a party national chairman, or we are supposed to have a party national chairman. The party is supposed to be different from the government. The president is the head of the government and the ceremonial head of the party. However, if the administrative head of the party, which is the party chairman, fails to organize a party convention, then the party has failed. How can you give a man to head a party, the biggest party in Africa, a man who has not been able to put Yobe State in order? You expect him to put the party in order nationally? Why will one man hold two important offices in a nation where there are so many other good people that can hold the same office? That is where the failure will begin and end from.
All right. I think the quest for a better Nigeria in 2023 should be taken very seriously, if you ask me. And it should be taken with all the sincerity it deserves.
Now, who are those running? How many guys are vying? We hear Wike is going to run. Ayade was trying to say, oh, he is a good material if the APC accept him. A lot of guys are going to run. President Muhammad Buhari has disclosed that even if he has a desired candidate, he will rather keep it to himself.
Disclosed, like I said, that he will keep his candidate to himself. He has said so. Guys, do you think that let me say so that we will not have anybody eliminated before the election? President also added that he's not a kingmaker. The president said he's not a kingmaker, and that if the party cannot agree, he said if the party cannot agree, the opposition will take over. Yes, we've said so. Meaning that those who want to contest should work for it. And
also hinting, the president hinted that the opposition, according to the president again, the failure, has a footing and they may take over. Now, if Mr. President is saying that if you want to contest for you should work for it. You should work for it. Guys, then think if Mr. President has a favorite candidate, he will win. If the candidate doesn't work for it, do you see Mr. President as a president that will come out, give you money and give you the backing? And what sort of support is he going to give to you to win the election than to work for it, Mr. Zachary?
Like, the president cannot bring out money for his own election. I think anybody who is expecting the president to bring out money in the 2023 election is living in a fool's paradise. In 2019, if we can all take our minds back, when Atiku then had deployed resources and they were bringing in a lot of people, they were influencing the judiciary, they were influencing the political parties, they were influencing even INEC. If you remember vividly, there were accusations that INEC had been compromised in favor of the opposition party, the opposition PDP then. The president refused to bring out money. All those who were working for the president were complaining. This is the same as Siwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu that people ran to Lagos, that mobilized the forces and was able to rescue that election for the president. You will remember that the president won with it was
Ahmed Tinubu out. He has informed Mr. President of his intention to run. We have also seen David Umahi, who has also informed Mr. President he was going to run. We have seen Dele Momodu, who is also out. He has told the PDP that he is going to run. We have had the Kogi State governor saying immediately after the National Convention of the APC, he was going to declare his intention. We have seen Pius Ayim also intending to run. We also think Mr. Atiku, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar also wants to run. People also complain he's a spent force and that he shouldn't run. We are hearing Fayemi of Ekiti State government is going to run. We have heard of the Minister for Transport, Rotimi Amechi, is planning to run. We've heard of others who are planning to run. Of course, some others have not declared intention. It is important to note that they all have the right to contest for the position. But the equilibrium here is competency and character. Competency and character. Have you seen a picture where the vice president was getting set to run? I think we've all seen that picture, although he has not officially declared to run. The picture where you see that picture, it tells a message that this one is ready to run. Take a look at the picture. I understand pressure is mounting on him to run. A recent gathering of his supporters in Kano, the other day were in Abuja, among other zones in the country, have jointly mounted pressure on him to run. The Asiwaju Bogu of the APC has come out of the pressure to run. Kogi State government is still under pressure. A lot of guys are under pressure to run. We have also seen recent photos in the media where it seemed that former President Jonathan and incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari are very close, and people have speculated that these guys, what is happening? People have speculated that the former president is being prepared to succeed President Muhammadu Buhari. Curiously, of course, former President Goodluck Jonathan is here to deny these speculations. Is here to deny. Should we expect anything from both of them? I mean, Mr. President and Mr. Ex-President. Do you think that we know there is something to it? Is there anything to this speculation? Could this be the same Jonathan that the president administration or the present administration has viciously blamed for everything that is inappropriate with Nigeria today? And now he and Mr. President are seen as buddies. It is also Mr. Jonathan's party, the failure party, I mean, that Mr. President sees as a failure, and then one begins to wonder, what Concord has as success? APC, seeing APC as a successful government now, APC success with failure. The Jonathan PDP-led administration failure. Well, what Concord do they have in common? But we are also not unaware that politics is indeed a network of no permanent foes, but only connected interests. Nigerians are the major stakeholders here. Should better be attentive to these findings. It is true that we want a new Nigeria. We want a new Nigeria, no doubt. A better environment and greater future for younger generation. But we should also remember that a wrong choice can jeopardize these desires. Elections are about choosing right and not just choosing. It must be right. Every citizen should bear in mind that the life of this giant country, this giant nation called Nigeria, depend on the right choice in 2023. I believe that we will elect who can fix the economy, who can be strong, who is energetic, who is sensitive and healthy, and a leader with a working team that will serve selflessly. A leader that will serve selflessly. In Nigeria, we know anything is possible. We know that anything is possible. But we as the people should as well note the fact that nobody owns this country. Nobody owns this country. Rather, The ownership is collective. As we come to the end of this show, we want you to stay safe. We need you to be conscious of your environment. Don't be a tool in the hands of any dubious politician in this electionary year. We want to appreciate Mr. Zachary Jr. and Mr. Ifosa Otogile for joining us on this show. We appreciate you guys. Take care of yourself and bye for now.